This is episode 3 of the Relentless Man podcast, Dignity of the Relentless Man. Welcome to the Relentless Man podcast. I'm your host, Modjaiso. My goal is to help you become the man you need to become in order to accomplish your goals. To do this, I will have to be very raw and brutally honest with you. If you're easily offended, stop listening. If you're easily triggered, stop listening. If you can't handle explicit language, stop listening. If you are fragile, stop listening. Otherwise, let's dig in. Here we're going to talk about your dignity of the relentless man. Now, let's suppose that you feel weak, you feel not respected, and you feel that you have no dignity. What am I going to tell you? How would I reply to this? If you told me, Christian, I have no dignity, I have no respect, nobody respects me, and I feel really weak. How would I reply to this? Well, I'm certainly not going to tell you all this positive thinking stuff. I'm not going to tell you, oh, you're not weak, you're actually strong. It's very possible that you actually are. As a matter of fact, at this moment, you're weak. It's very possible that at this moment, nobody respects you. This could be a fact. Would it be of value if I told you that, hey, you're actually respected by people? People really want to listen to you and stuff. No, I would not tell you that. Because as I mentioned in episode 2, please check it out. It talks about the whole idea of something being malleable. Things like your respect and physical and mental strength are things that are malleable. You could become, with practice and the right ideas, you could become stronger, you could become more respectable in society. Just in the same way you could become less respectable, you could become weaker. This is obviously all up to you. But notice that I strategically skipped the whole idea of dignity. Would I tell you that or would I tell you that absolutely you have no dignity? No, I would not tell you that. The reason is dignity is something, it's something rigid, and it's even more than that. It's the sort of thing that you cannot increase. That is, you cannot have more dignity just as you cannot have less dignity. I'm talking about dignity as a human being, your inherent humanity. In the same way, the other thing is that with a thing like dignity, you are born with it. As you come into this world with dignity. It cannot be increased, it cannot be taken away. You're just stuck with dignity. And as human beings, we have the same dignity, really, if you think about it. A really rich person seated in his castle, surrounded by guards and sleeping on a golden bed, has dignity. But he has the same human dignity as the person that's seated on the street with no food to eat. The same dignity as the person seated in a prison cell at this moment. Same dignity. Our humanity is the same across all people, and it's really irrespective of our status in society, how much we have or how much we do not have. Another really important thing about this concept of your dignity as a person is that dignity is something that is irrespective of action, independent of action. Well, this sounds a little fancy. Well, what does it really mean? It means that the dignity you are born with is something that you cannot increase with your actions. You also can't decrease your humanity, your humanness, or your dignity with your actions. Let's look at some examples. So, we have a priest, someone who does a lot of good. He preaches, he conducts mass every Sunday. When couples are having trouble, they go to him to help them resolve their marital issues. When people have done wrong things and they have a guilty conscience and they don't know what to do with it, they go to the priest. And what does the priest do? The priest listens to their problems and helps them to deal with them. He acts like a therapist, if you'd like. Is this person adding value to society? Absolutely. Does the priest have dignity? No doubt about it. Yes, he has dignity. His humanity is there. He has dignity. How about someone else? We have all sorts of people doing a lot of great stuff. Like, let's say a woman works at uh, a helpline for suicide people. When people are at the edge, when their life is really hard, when they're breaking down, when they can't take it anymore, when they are on top of a building and preparing to jump, or they have a rope around their neck and now considering kicking off the chains, beginning to hang. When someone is holding pills in their hands and they're about to ingest them into their mouth and die, they call this person, the person at the suicide helpline. They listen to this person and the person tells them, he talks them out of committing suicide and ending their lives. Does this person has dignity? Does he have dignity? Absolutely, of course. This woman has dignity. She's doing good stuff, and just as a person, she has dignity. Well, consider someone like, say, someone makes something like the Apple phone, the phones we all use, the very popular ones nowadays. Basically giving the ordinary person a computer and putting it in their hand, enabling them to connect and communicate in ways that we never thought possible. Does this person have dignity? It's very easy to see that. Absolutely. They have dignity. How about just the ordinary person who is not necessarily doing things that are extraordinary on the scale of a Steve Jobs, but they wake up early in the morning, maybe they drive the kids to work, and then they go to work and they do an average job. They're not remarkable at it, but they do what they're supposed to do. They get paid at the end of the day, and they continue living like that. Does this common person, a middle-class person, does this person have dignity? Absolutely. We have no doubt about it. How about the person who does nothing, sits on the couch at home, he's 50 years old but still lives with his mother, never really got a job, smokes drugs on the side, is now completely out of control actually, and spends every waking hour seated on the couch watching TV and eating cheeseburgers, obviously, just growing fatter and fatter, is almost obese at this point. Last week he sat on the couch and the couch broke because he was so heavy. Does this person have dignity? Yes, the person has dignity. How about if we go a little negative? So we take someone, for instance, who causes harm to others, but not such big harm. Let's say he's a pickpocket, walks on the street, and if you're not looking, he grabs your wallet and takes off with it. Usually into stealing petty things, or he'll go into your house and when you're not looking, he's going to steal, let's say, he'll steal your phone, or he'll steal a pair of shoes, or he'll steal something that you might not notice that is gone, but they can sell it and get some money. Does this person have dignity? Yes. Are they doing a good thing? Well, no, obviously not. Stealing is not the right thing to do. But do they have dignity as a person? Yes. Let's consider now the person who has had things done to them. Someone has been raped, say, molested perhaps. Someone inserted objects in their anus, or all these horrible things that people do. Is this commendable behavior? Absolutely not. Would we like this to happen? No. But we have people who have experienced this. Does this person have dignity as a person? Yes, they do. Now consider people on the more evil scale of humanity. Think about someone like Richard Kuklinski. Richard Kuklinski was a serial killer from the United States. I don't know if he was or is, but I'm not sure if he's dead or alive, but certainly he was a serial killer. And he was, as far as killing is concerned, he was one of the creative ones, if such a thing is possible. Basically, he'd kill with all sorts of tools. He'd use cyanide. He'd experiment with cool ways to kill. He'd use cyanide. He once killed someone with a bow and arrow. He shot people. He'd put them in tanks and then roll them over. You know, he was a hitman for the mob. And this guy, Richard Kuklinski, estimated by the police, he killed at least 500 people and buried them in all sorts of places. So as far as being evil, this is really pretty evil. No, it's the most depraved things one can do. Is this behavior commendable? Absolutely not. Should people become like him? No. Is he a role model for our children? Absolutely not. However, does he have dignity as a person? Yes. You're born with dignity. You can never increase it. You can never decrease it. You just have dignity. Every human being has it. Let's go even more evil just to show what this really means when we say that your dignity as a person is independent of what you do. Consider this, an individual like Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler, we all know his story. As far as evil comes, it's hard to imagine anything more evil. He killed millions of people. One website talks about, I think he killed maybe 11 million people, committed atrocities. Not just killing people. That's evil. He also did other things that were evil. He experimented on people. I think when I was a kid, I read something about how he'd get Jews and he'd dress one up really well and he'd get another one and strip them naked and then he'd drop them in in cold, freezing water, and then he'd get scientists with clocks, and the scientists were trying to figure out how long it takes for a clothed man to freeze to death versus how long it takes for someone who's undressed to freeze to death. Absolutely horrible, depraved stuff. Is this stuff that would encourage? No. Is this man a role model for us? Absolutely not. Should anyone try to behave like him? No. Now the question becomes, does he have humanity? Does he have dignity? Yes. This is not what people like to hear, but yes, there is certain humanity in everybody that cannot be taken away from them. So, that is independent of what they do or don't do. It's just an intrinsic thing that we are born with. And we see this in all sorts of religions. For instance, in Christianity, it says every human being is born in the image and likeness of God. What does this statement mean? Well, if you interpret it, it's not saying that we all look like God physically. Not really. The idea here is that we all have a piece of God in us. The really good people have a piece of God. The people who don't do much for the world have a piece of God in them. This also means, however, that the extremely evil people also have a piece of God in them. We cannot condone their behavior. We cannot excuse it. However, they're human beings and they still have a human dignity that cannot be taken away or stripped from them. And every religion has this, actually. I think in Islam and all these other religions too. There's something about having a piece of God in us. There's a certain humanness to us. And maybe you're listening and you're the sort of person who is not religious. Okay, so you don't really subscribe to all this religious stuff. Well, then I'd ask you to just sit down, be really quiet, and try to still your mind. Don't think about anything. And just observe and feel things. And you could feel this humanity. It's something transcendent about yourself. Even your environment, by the way. You look at an inanimate object like a bottle of water or a table or a chair. Sure, we call it inanimate because it doesn't move. That's obviously on an exterior level. If you look at it on an atomic level, of course it moves. There's a vibration of atoms. But if you look at it carefully, if you look at an object like, let's say, just a glass on a table, and you don't think about it, you don't label it, you just observe it, there is a certain life to it. And in particular, when you look at people, just observe them and not think and not interpret, you can sense this humanity as well, this dignity, this thing that binds us all together, regardless of what we've done in the world. Notice, however, that there's a difference between having dignity as a person and being valuable. Being valuable is being of value to the marketplace. That means you make things happen. Let's say you build a school, you improve people's lives, you stop people from committing suicide, you educate students if you're a teacher. If you're a farmer, you feed people. That's adding value to people. That is not something you're born with. That is something that you actually have to work at. You can become more valuable to people, and if you get lazy, you can become less valuable to them. And at some point, you can actually be someone who is not just not adding value, but taking away value, like killing people and causing all sorts of mayhem. However, there's this concept of dignity. Dignity is not the same as value. You could be valueless to society but still have dignity. And we all have it. So now you're wondering, okay, Christian, fine. So you're talking about dignity. Why is this such an important thing? What's the deal about it? Because ultimately, what I'm concerned with is practicality. Ideas that you can apply today to make things happen in your life. So let's evaluate how this idea of intrinsic worthiness and dignity is so important. What's the value of it? So we're going to do it using the analogy of there are really two types of men. There's the relentless man and there's the mediocre man. Let's present a scenario and we see how they deal with it. Someone takes a test and they get a bad grade. Okay? The relentless man says, oh wow, I just got an F on this test. This means that I did not master the material. There are some skills I do not know. The professor is giving me feedback. I am not an F person. I have not become less as a human being just because I failed this test. My dignity is intact. I'm still human. I am still worthy as a person, but my grade is bad. I have not mastered, let's say, this math principle or this technique that I needed to know in order to pass this test. How does the mediocre man handle this? Oh no, I got a bad grade. The professor thinks I'm stupid. I'm such a failure. I never did do well on tests. I'm just a dumbass. I have no value. I'm worthless. Let me go and cry. I'm just useless. This is obviously problematic. With this point of view where a simple grade, if you think about it, what's a grade really? You hand in your test to the professor, and the professor brings back the grade and a paper and it's written F. If you think about it, it's just a paper with some letters, some scratching on it, and we've labeled it as F. It's just a piece of paper. It has meaning, of course, but the mediocre man lets such a piece of paper measure them. So when they get an A, they feel more worthy and more dignified as people. When they get an F, they feel, oh no, my life has ended, and suddenly they're worthless. So their worth and dignity fluctuates depending on the grade that they get, which is completely nuts and an unsustainable way to live. We have another scenario. A boss insults an employee. How does the relentless man react? Oh yeah, the boss just called me a worthless piece of shit. I know that I'm not a worthless piece of shit because I have dignity. So, did I do anything that elicited this response from her? Was she perhaps going through a bad day and that's why she called me a worthless piece of shit? He moves into problem-solving mode, just trying to figure out, to try and deal with the situation. He never takes the insult from the boss or the harsh criticism from the boss as a measure somehow of how valuable, of how important he is as a human being. How does a mediocre man react? Oh no, the boss just called me a piece of shit. I really am a piece of shit. I always knew I was worthless. I never succeeded at anything in my life. Everything I do fails. I'm such a failure. Blah, 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 blah. Whine, 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 complain, complain, complain. Now he's depressed. Now he's sad. Now he's taking off his anger and feelings of inadequacy onto others. And then it affects his heart rate. And then it's just downhill from there. All because this mediocre man doesn't realize that there is a difference between the things he does and what people say about him and his intrinsic value, his dignity as a human being. Another scenario, a guy is in a relationship and he gets dumped. If he's a relentless man, he says, okay, fine. This person might have rejected me, but doesn't mean that I am somehow worthless or I have no dignity. No, absolutely not. They rejected me. There's a reason they rejected me for sure. Let's try and figure it out. Maybe I wasn't communicating correctly. Maybe I didn't understand her. I didn't spend enough time with her. I didn't do things to grow the relationship. How can I ensure that in my next relationship I can do better? The relentless man has moved into problem-solving mode. He hasn't taken these things too personally. It's just something that's happened to him. His dignity is intact, and now how do I deal with the situation? That's how a relentless man thinks. How do you think the mediocre man is going to think? Oh no, she dumped me. I'm just not worthy of love. Nobody will ever love me. Nobody ever loved me. I'm such a useless person. Every relationship I go to is going to be doomed. Of what value is such thinking? What could it possibly accomplish other than depressing the guy and just making him miserable? And obviously, it's not true because the mediocre man, whether he realizes it or not, has a certain dignity that does not depend on whether someone approves of him or not, whether someone stays in a relationship with him or dumps him. He has this intrinsic dignity, but if he chooses not to acknowledge it, then he ends up taking things personally and things just going downhill in his life. In fact, to be honest with you, any person who does not realize that they are inherently worthy and external events do not determine their dignity or worth as a person, anybody who doesn't realize this is really going to end up being unfulfilled. And that's why many religions and people who've looked deeply into life and have had years to reflect come to the same conclusion. There is something inherent and internal. Our value to the society is obviously our actions and the skills we know and how we treat people, absolutely. But our intrinsic worth and dignity is something internal, something that's unaffected by the world around us. And the people who've thought deeply about these things and the people who live lives that are really admirable, not just financially or whatever, people who live lives that are happy and fulfilled are people who realize this sense of intrinsic value that they have. And without that intrinsic value, it doesn't matter, without this intrinsic sense of dignity, it doesn't matter how much money you have, how good grades you get, how many scientific theories you come up with, how many touchdowns you make, how many goals you score as a soccer, football player. You'll pursue these things, then you'll enjoy for a few seconds the joy that comes from understanding them or from accomplishing these goals, but then you'll feel empty and unfulfilled again because you're basically pursuing the impossible, expecting an external event to somehow fulfill you and make you, give you dignity. Never happens like that. Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. It is now available on Stitcher and iTunes. So if you liked it or enjoyed it and it added value to you, please subscribe, rate, and review us on either Stitcher or iTunes. Hopefully both. When you subscribe, you are able to get the episodes immediately they come out. My show is, this show runs, I submit episodes once every 2 weeks on Saturdays, typically. So if you subscribe, then you get to see the episodes early. If you rate us, then that means that people who are trying to search for, let's say, help or people who need this information, the knowledge that's in this podcast, if you rate and review us, then these people can access it and can get the value that you are getting from it. If you have a friend who you think this podcast will be of value to them, please tell them about it. Now, every episode is focused on a problem facing a community member. I build an episode around it. So please send me your questions and very likely I will build an episode around it. In order to help you prioritize and decide what is the biggest problem you're facing in your life, it's interesting, it's fun actually, and valuable, I think, to engage in a sort of thought experiment. Suppose you meet a magical sadist, and this magical sadist says to you, absolutely, he's gonna chop off your balls. Your balls are gone, there's nothing we can do about it. But he offers to solve one problem in your life in exchange for taking away your balls. What problem would you have him solve? What problem is worth losing your balls for? Please message me your ball problem, and I will design an episode around it. The way to message or contact me is in the description of the podcast. If you hate this podcast or hate parts of it, I'd especially like to hear from you as well. Please message me, send me an email. My email address is modjaiso@gmail.com. My contact details and how to rate and review us is in the show description. So please take a look at that. Thank you very much once again for listening, and hope to see you on the next episode. Bye.